Hi, I'm Allyson, and I'm going to be reading to you today from Fromm's, for himself, in the last chapter about the moral problem of today. So here we go. Our moral problem is man's indifference to himself. It lies in the fact that we have lost the sense of the significance and uniqueness of the individual, that we have made ourselves into instruments for purposes outside ourselves, that we experience and treat ourselves as commodities, and that our own powers have become alienated from ourselves. We have become things, and our neighbors have become things. The result is that we feel powerless and despise ourselves for our impotence. Since we do not trust our own power, we have no faith in man, no faith in ourselves, or in what our own powers can create. We have no conscience in the humanistic sense, since we do not dare trust our own judgment. We are a herd believing that the road we must follow led to a goal, since we see everybody else on the same road. We are in the dark and keep up our courage because we hear everybody else whistle as we do. Dostoevsky once said, "If God is dead, everything is allowed." This is indeed what most people believe. They differ only in that some draw the conclusion that God and the Church must remain alive in order to uphold the moral order, while others accept the idea that everything is allowed and there is no valid moral principle, that expediency is the only regulative principle in life. In contrast, humanistic values takes the position that if man is alive, he knows what is allowed, and to be alive means to be productive, to use one's own powers for not any purpose transcending men, but for oneself, to make sense of one's own existence, to be human. As long as anyone believes that this ideal and purpose is outside him, that it is above the clouds, in the past or in the future, he will go outside himself and seek fulfillment where it cannot be found. He will look for solutions and answers at every point except the one that it can really be found, in himself. The realists assure us that the problem of ethics is the relic of the past. They tell us that our psychological or sociological analysis shows that all values are only relative to a given culture. They propose that our personal and social future is guaranteed by our material effectiveness alone. But these realists are ignorant of some hard facts. They do not see that the emptiness and plainlessness of individual life, the lack of productiveness, and the conquescent lack of faith in oneself and mankind, if prolonged, results in emotional mental disturbances, which would incapacitate man, even for the achievement of his material aims. Prophecies of doom are heard today with increasing frequency. While they have important function of drawing attention to the dangerous possibilities in our present situation, they fail to take into account the promise which is implied in man's achievement in the natural sciences, in psychology, in medicine, and in art. Indeed, these achievements portray the presence of strong productive forces, which are not compatible with the picture of a decaying culture. Our period is a period of transition. The Middle Ages did not end in the 15th century. The modern era did not begin immediately afterward. End and beginning imply a process which has lasted over 400 years, in a very short time indeed, if we measure it in historical terms, and not the terms of our lifespan. Our period is an end, a beginning, pregnant with possibilities. If I repeat now the question raised in the beginning of this book, whether we have reason to be proud and to be hopeful, the answer is again in the affirmative, but with one qualification which follows from what we have discussed throughout. Neither good nor evil, nor the evil outcome, is automatic or preordained. The decision rests with man. It rests upon his ability to take himself, his life, his happiness seriously, on his willingness to face his and his social moral problem. It rests on his courage to be himself and to be for himself. So that's the end of Fromm's book, Man for Himself, and I think it's really interesting because he's basically saying that as humans, we have all of these possibilities, all this potential, and we can create the kind of experience that we want to create. It's kind of like a cool idea that as humans, we have the possibility to be whatever we want to be, and we have to make that choice to have whatever experience we want to have, and we can create that experience. And it's really cool because I think this passage also relates to the Brené Brown TED Talk we watched this week on the power of vulnerability. And it's really sad that we view ourselves as humans as not worthy and like a failure, and like don't really trust ourselves. We feel powerless when really when we feel vulnerable, when actually we can turn that vulnerability into a positive by feeling worthy and really believe that we're enough as a human race. And that way, I think if we realize this, we can be kinder and gentle to not only ourselves but to other people. So something cool to think about. Thanks for listening.